Hi, welcome to another episode of Webcam Sessions. This week we're going to be talking about finger individuality and how important it is to develop good habits to be able to identify what finger you need to move and when. So to work on this, we've got a very basic example. Let's go ahead and play our G chord, everyday G, our index finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the E, and our middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the A. So when you play this G chord, one of the things that people oftentimes struggle with at first, if you haven't done this before, it might be tricky, is if I say take off the fret on the A string, what all too often happens is people do this, which isn't the A string, right? The A string is the one closest to the ground, but their brain is telling them to take off their ring finger when it should be telling them to take off their middle. And the reason for this is because the way that our brain sort of looks at this information, man, my chair is squeaky. The way that our brain looks at this information is we see it from a directional standpoint. So when I'm telling myself to take off the A string, I'm telling myself to take off the lowest finger, which usually would be the ring finger here, making it very difficult to take off just that middle. But let's go ahead and try practicing this. So we're going to play just a G chord. And now take off the middle finger so that you're open there and play that. And what you'll notice is that actually is a really nice sound. Turns it into what's called a G sus2 chord. Kind of cool. But just going back and forth here, I'm just doing basic down strums between them, is really good to, again, start to get that finger individuality going. So now, let's try doing it with our ring finger. And sometimes you'll think ring finger and you'll take off this one because it's the lowest. Again, everyone's a little different in terms of how their brain communicates to it. But we're trying to work on just taking off the E string. So by just taking off this finger, it turns it into what's called a G6 chord. So another really cool sounding example, which is kind of neat. But now let's do the middle finger again. All right, now do the ring finger. Now the last finger here is the index. This one doesn't really have a great name for the chord. There are a few things that you can call it, but it still sounds good. And so the point here is that you can get comfortable removing a single finger at a time. Oftentimes when we're changing chords, we're thinking of moving all of our fingers at once to go from one chord to another. And we've had a lot of episodes where we've talked about playing chords in different ways so that you don't have to make switches more difficult. For instance, going from a G chord to an E minor by only adding one finger. So what this is really kind of piggybacking on that and saying that we should be able to move individual fingers instead of moving them all at once, right? So another example of this, and this is a crazy exercise. I'm not sure where I saw it. In fact, I think a student brought it up with me, and I hate it because it's so difficult. I have trouble with it. Is go ahead and try this for me. Go ahead and place all 4 fingers, your index, middle, ring, and pinky fingers, on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th frets of the A string. All right. So now, what you can practice first here is taking your index and moving it up to the 1st fret on the E and then back down. Then do it with your middle finger, and then your ring, and then your pinky. So you'll notice I'm not making a sound with this, right? I'm just practicing moving each finger up and down, which you'll notice is really hard. It's really easy to accidentally move multiple fingers, right? But just one at a time. So now the next trick is moving multiples. So maybe you do these first 2, then you do these 2, right? And then here's where I'm gonna mess up and show how much of a fool I am with this. What if you move the alternate fingers? So what if I try to move my index and ring fingers both up? That is really deceptively hard. Now move them both back down. And now move my middle and pinky both up, while maintaining the pressure with my index and ring. See, when I move them down, I want to take the fingers off. What it's trying to teach is keeping that finger individuality, right? And now it's moving them together. So just index and ring. Oh, see, I did the index and middle. Index and ring, there we go. And then middle and pinky. Man, it's so freaking hard. But it's so beneficial because as you get more comfortable with this, you'll be able to do more agile movements when you're switching between chords, playing a tab, a melody, whatever it might be. So try playing your favorite chord, whatever it may be, as long as it has multiple fingers. Try practicing adding and subtracting just one at a time to get a little bit more comfortable with some finger individuality. I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Webcam Sessions. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I make sure that I try to read through as many of them as I can, and it's always cool to see what you guys are working on and thinking up. So I'll see you guys next week, and thanks again.